My mom said I'd never measure up to my brother. So I brought the proof. My mother looked me dead in the eye across the dining table, smirked, and said, "You will never be on your brother's level." Everyone laughed like it was a cute joke, like it was my job to chuckle, swallow the sting, and move on, the way I always did. My name is Jordan Price. I'm 30, and for years I paid their bills quietly, in the background, like it was just another subscription I'd signed up for. That night, something snapped. I shoved my chair back. My heart was hammering so hard I could barely hear myself, but the words came out anyway. "Cool," I said. "Then from now on, let him pay for everything. I'm done transferring money." The room went so quiet you could hear the clock in the kitchen. My mom blinked, and then narrowed her eyes like I'd just insulted her in public. "What money, Jordan?" she replied. "You have never sent us a dime." She said it with so much confidence that for half a second I actually questioned my own memory. Half a second. Then every late-night wire, every just this once payment, every time I'd chosen their bills over my own life, came flooding back. I work in finance. I live in spreadsheets. I reconcile other people's accounts for a living. I know exactly where my money goes. So when she tried to erase years of help with one sentence, I realized this wasn't about forgetting. It was about pretending I didn't count at all. I took a breath and said, "If you really want to say that, then I guess I'll have to show you." Because I kept everything, every transfer, every note, every little favor. I had the receipts, literally, printed, organized, and sitting in my car. And when I brought that stack back inside and dropped it on the table in front of my family, my mother went white before she finished the first page. If you want to know how that binder cracked years of golden child favoritism and spun my brother's provider story on its head, stick with me, because that sentence at dinner didn't come out of nowhere. The Sunday my mom told me I'd never be on my brother's level was supposed to be just another routine dinner at my parents' house in Dayton. I'd driven down from Columbus like I had 100 times before. Laptop bag on the passenger seat, because my dad always had one quick computer thing he needed help with, and a pan of brownies sliding around on the back seat, because my mom was forever telling people mine tasted just like Grandma's. I-70 was backed up, brake lights as far as I could see. While I inched my way toward their exit, my brain wasn't on the radio. It was running my budget. The autopay I had set up for their electric and gas was hitting that week. So was the $80 phone bill I'd just covered for them on Wednesday. Rent was paid, my student loan debit was pending, and my own savings was thin. I kept telling myself it was fine. I made okay money. I was good with finances. This was what responsible adults did, right? When I pulled into their driveway, my brother's big black pickup wasn't there yet. It never was. Him being on time was my job. I walked in with the brownies. My mom, Carla, took them from me with a distracted kiss on the cheek. "Right on time, of course," she said. "You're my steady girl, Jordy." She said it like it was our special compliment. It never felt that way to me. Steady girl sounded more like a role than praise. The designated adult. My dad, Mike, was at the dining table with his bifocals on, laptop open, a leaning tower of envelopes, and a beat-up calculator off to the side. He glanced up just long enough to say, "Hey, kiddo, remind me later. I gotta have you show me how to pay something online." He said it casually, like asking me to grab the salt, like my time and know-how came with the house. My aunt Denise sat at the end of the table, folding cloth napkins into little fans and telling my mom about a coworker at her credit union who'd just been promoted. She looked up as I came in. "There's our girl," she said. "Always hustling, always busy. I bet you're killing it up in that big city." The way older relatives do when they assume your life is smooth because you don't bring them your stress. For the first hour or so, everything went according to script. Carla moved around the kitchen, narrating my brother's latest achievements, even though he wasn't there yet. A listing he might be getting. Some guy he networked with at a brewery. A TikTok he'd filmed that almost went viral, according to her. My dad tossed in lines like, "That boy is always on the move. Makes us proud." And Aunt Denise nodded. "He's always had that spark," she said. Some people just draw success. Whenever my name came up, it was one of 3 lines, like they only had a handful of facts about me on index cards. Jordan is reliable. Jordan's fine up in Columbus. Jordan's got that good finance job, so we don't worry about her. Reliable, fine, good job. As if that was the entirety of who I was. As if fine meant I didn't have loans or dreams or nights staring at my banking app trying to make everything fit. I laid out plates, refilled water, floated around the edge of the conversation, listening to them hype up my older brother who wasn't even there yet. At one point, my mom shoved her phone in Aunt Denise's face to show her one of Noah's Instagram reels. Him in sunglasses on somebody's boat, holding up a drink. "Look at him living his best life," she said. "That boy works so hard. And he deserves it." She conveniently left out the part where he'd called me 3 weeks earlier for a short-term loan because a commission check was late and his car payment was due. When Noah finally rolled in, late naturally, holding a cheap bottle of grocery store wine like it was a trophy, the whole room tilted toward him. He kissed my mom on the cheek, clapped my dad on the shoulder, gave Aunt Denise a hug, and gave me a one-armed squeeze while still scrolling his phone. Then he launched into a story about some insane open house where a guy in a designer suit had come through. There was some joke about crypto bros. Everyone laughed on cue, leaning in, reacting like they were watching a guest on a talk show. My dad slapped him on the back. "That's my son," he said. "Really out there making it happen." My mom's face was glowing. Aunt Denise adjusted the silverware in front of her like she was fluffing props. I sat there, chewing my dinner, thinking about the text from my mom 2 days before asking if I could cover a couple things this week. Groceries, Hulu, her hair appointment, if it's not too much trouble. No one brought that part up. No one mentioned the recurring draft from my account that quietly paid their utility bill. No one mentioned the $200 I'd Zelled Noah last month with the note, "Bridge until closing," so he wouldn't overdraft his business account. Instead, Noah got to be the man of the house. At one point, between bites of roast, my dad joked, "Noah's really the one taking care of us now. We'd be lost without him." Chuckles around the table. My mom nodded proudly. "He's just got a talent," she said. "Everything he touches turns into an opportunity." Then she turned to me with that same vague smile, the one that never quite reached her eyes when it was directed at me, and dropped the line that changed everything. She shook her head like she was stating an obvious fact, not throwing a dagger. "Jordy," she said, "you'll never be quite like your brother." They all laughed. Like it was harmless, like it was just the natural order of things. I smiled my tight little smile. My chest was burning, but I finished my meal, helped clear dishes, packed away leftovers, did all the things I always do. Then I drove back to Columbus in the dark, my hands locked on the steering wheel. Halfway up I-75, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "Hey, can you grab some toilet paper and laundry detergent this week?" Also, Netflix went up again. "Can you cover it until we rebudget? Love you." I stared at it at a red light and felt something inside me tilt. I had just listened to my mother say I'd never be on Noah's level. My brother had brought a $7 bottle of red as his contribution, and somehow I was still the one being asked to pick up the unglamorous basics and quietly underwrite their entertainment. By the time I got back to my apartment, my anger had sharpened into something else. Clarity. I tossed my keys on the counter, pulled out my laptop, and logged into my bank. At first, it was just about proving to myself that I wasn't overreacting. But work mode kicked in. I exported 5 years of transaction history into a spreadsheet and filtered for my parents' names and Noah's. Memo lines I'd written flicked by as I scrolled. Duke Energy, Water Bill, State Farm, Giant Eagle Run, Noah Coaching, Noah Gas. Row after row, month after month. I added the amounts. When the total populated in the corner of the sheet, my breath caught. $23,940. That was a car. That was a serious start on a down payment. That was several years of maxed out Roth IRA contributions. And that didn't even include the gas fill-ups and grocery trips that had never touched Zelle, or the Saturdays I'd given up to handle their computer stuff so they didn't have to pay anyone. At work, if a client tried to pretend a number that big didn't exist, we'd either call it denial or fraud. Just because these were my parents didn't make the math less real. A few minutes later, a new email popped up from my dad. Subject line: Family Finances. He'd attached a blurry photo of a stack of envelopes and scribbled, "We should all sit down Sunday and talk about how both kids can be contributing regularly. Bring your checkbook, no acknowledgement of what I'd already been doing, no hint that they saw me as anything but an unused resource." Instead of falling back into the old script, sigh, shrug, show up with my card, I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Family Money. I went through my banking app, my email, my text confirmations, and saved every transfer and bill payment to my parents and Noah over the last 5 years. Screenshots, PDFs, statement pages. I organized them by year. I totaled them again for my own sanity. Then I printed the whole thing at work the next day on my lunch break, hole punched it, went and slid it into a plain navy binder. On the cover, in block letters, I wrote, "What I've paid." When my mom texted midweek to remind me about Sunday dinner and added, "We're out of paper towels too if you don't mind," I typed back, "Sure, I'll bring what's needed." She had no idea what I meant. That Sunday, I drove to Dayton with a case of paper towels in the trunk and the binder buckled into the front seat like a passenger. My mom's text that morning had said, "Just a little family meeting before we eat. Nothing scary. Love you." When I walked into the house, the smells of cooking were there, but the table was cleared except for my dad's laptop, a pile of bills, and a legal pad with numbers. My dad gave me a stiff nod. "Glad you're here. We're going to figure this out like adults," he said. My mom flitted between the stove and the table, chewing on her cuticle. Aunt Denise sat at the end of the table with her coffee, looking like she'd been recruited as referee. Noah was leaned back in his chair on his phone, one ankle on his knee, casual as ever. I dropped the paper towels in the pantry, set my purse down, and laid the binder on the table next to my dad's mess. No one commented. Yet. My dad cleared his throat and launched into it. "Your mom and I went through some of these bills," he said, tapping the envelopes. "Things have gotten tight. Prices are up. Insurance went up. Your old man's meds aren't cheap." He glanced at Noah. "We know you're doing what you can, son. And Jordan, you've helped here and there. We just thought it was time to make a plan. Something regular. So we're not always putting out fires." My mom nodded, eyes too bright. "Exactly. Noah's been doing so much already, and we know you're stable too, sweetheart. If we all pitched in a little, we could breathe again." Aunt Denise chimed in. "Families who budget together stay together," she said. "This is smart." They kept talking over each other for a minute. Words like team and share and doing our part filled the air. I listened. Then I pulled the binder toward me, opened it to the first page, and slid it into the middle of the table. "Before we talk about what I can do," I said, "you need to see what I've already been doing." My mom frowned. "What is that?" she asked. "Some work thing." My dad squinted at the headings. "Jordy, we're not here to go over spreadsheets. This is about feelings, too." "It is about numbers," I said. "Years, because my feelings got run over by your numbers a long time ago. This is 5 years of transfers to you and to Noah. Monthly, totaled." I tapped the bold figure at the bottom. They leaned in, out of habit more than interest. I watched the color drain from my mother's face like someone was pulling a plug. She let out a brittle laugh. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Those are just little helps. You've made it look like something huge." My dad leaned in, reading, and his expression pinched. "Jordan, this doesn't mean utilities, insurance, groceries, phone, coaching programs, you name it," I cut in. "I haven't missed a month in 4 years, except when my card expired and Mom called in a panic because the power company messed up." I flipped the page. Under each month, there was a list. June, Duke Energy, 180, Water 60, Wart Spectrum, 110, Kroger, 75, Noah, Seminar, 250. July, August, September, year after year. My mom slammed the binder shut, harder than necessary. "We don't need to see every petty thing you've ever done," she snapped. "Family doesn't nickel and dime each other." "And this isn't even everything," I said quietly. "It doesn't capture the gas or the random cash. This is just what I could document." Noah finally pulled his eyes off his phone. "Jesus, Jord," he said. "You've been keeping a ledger? That's obsessive." "It's not like we twisted your arm," my mom latched onto that. "Exactly. This was your choice. Gifts. We thought you were happy to help. We never asked you to pay in some official way. We certainly didn't think you were taking notes like we're strangers. You will never be the kind of person your brother is if you keep acting like this." There it was again, the line that had sat on my chest for a week. I pushed my chair back and stood up. Every nerve was buzzing, but my voice came out level. "If I'm never going to be on Noah's level, no matter what I do," I said, "then from now on, he can be the one you ask to keep the lights on. Because I'm done. I'm not wiring money to you anymore." The silence was instant and heavy. My dad sputtered. "You can't just—" My mom cut in sharply. "What money, Jordan? We have never gotten a single dollar from you." She said it slow, like she could cement it into the truth by enunciating every word. I opened the binder again and turned it back toward her. "Page 1 is the totals," I said. $23,940. The rest is the breakdown. If you're going to look me in the face and say that never happened, then I honestly don't know who raised me. My mom shoved it away like it was contaminated. You are blowing this way out of proportion, she said. You're making us feel like criminals for accepting help from our own daughter. I'm making you look at what I've actually done, I said, because you've all been pretending I'm just fine, that I don't do anything, that Noah is the one taking care of you. You've let him believe that too. Meanwhile, the draft out of my account is what's kept your power and internet from getting shut off. My dad shook his head, hurt and indignant. Families don't keep score, Jordy. We bought you clothes, we helped you with tuition, we gave you a roof. Why, you're really going to throw money in our faces now? That's not what this is, I said. This is me saying, I see the pattern now and I'm stepping out of it. I'm your child, not your credit line. You can love me or not, but you don't get to erase what I've already sacrificed and then demand more. I picked up the binder and tucked it under my arm. I'll still visit, I said. I'll still answer the phone. If you're in real danger, we can talk about it like adults. But the assumption that my paycheck belongs to this house and to Noah's opportunities dies here. Aunt Denise finally spoke, voice small. Maybe we should all cool off, she said. My mother's lips were pressed so tight they were almost white. My dad looked stunned. Noah rolled his eyes and muttered something about dramatic under his breath. Yet I didn't stick around to decode it. For the first time in years, I walked out of that house without mentally solving their problems for the next month. That's when the real test started. The ride home to Columbus was a symphony of notifications, calls, voicemails, texts, group chat pings. I let my phone buzz face down on the passenger seat until I pulled into my parking lot. Then I sat there in the dim light and hit play. My mom's first voicemail was wounded outrage. How could you do that in front of your brother and your aunt? She demanded. You made us look like we're using you. We are your parents. We are allowed to ask for help. The second was sharper. If you wanted to feel appreciated, you could have spoken to us privately, she said. You didn't have to put on a show with that binder like you're some auditor. Or this is not a business, this is family. My dad's message was full of disappointment. You really blindsided us, kiddo, he said. Nobody held a gun to your head. You were generous. That doesn't mean we owe you. It's not a loan. You're going to regret making such a big deal out of this. Noah's voicemail was the ugliest. Who the hell does that? He scoffed. Printing out your bank history like some crazy ex. You want to tally up every $100 you sent and act like you're a martyr. That's on you. Stop making Mom cry. In the following days, the strategy shifted. The angry calls gave way to revision attempts. Text from Mom. I really think you added something wrong. There's no way it was over 20,000. You're stressed. You've always had a tendency to exaggerate when you're upset. Email from Dad with a list of what we've spent on you over the years. A used Honda they helped me buy at 19, some school fees, a couple of old dentist bills, ending with, maybe we should all stop putting dollar signs on love. A coffee invite from Aunt Denise that I reluctantly accepted. At the cafe, she wrapped both hands around her mug and leaned forward. Honey, I see both sides, she said. I work with money too, remember? I know numbers don't lie, but you can't treat your parents like clients. They're older, they're scared, you're doing well. It's natural that they lean on you. I'm not treating them like clients, I said. I'm treating myself like my life matters too. She sighed, long and put upon. Just don't let stubbornness cost you your family, she said. You can always make more money. You can't make another mom and dad. I drove back to work, parked, sat in my car, and opened my banking app. My thumb hovered over the auto pays that had been feeding their accounts for years. I canceled every single one. The utility auto pay, the car insurance auto pay, the grocery top-up transfer. Then I set up a new recurring transfer, same total amount from my checking into a savings account I renamed for me. With what was left, I increased my retirement contribution by a small percentage. The numbers weren't huge, but for once, they were pointed at my future, not their past due notices. The blowback didn't disappear, but it changed flavor. My mom posted vague quotes on Facebook about children who forget who changed their diapers and not raising my kids like this. A few older relatives liked and commented hearts. My dad sent the occasional pointed text about pride before a fall. Noah threw up a story about fake people keeping receipts with a laughing emoji. At the same time, real-life adjustments began creeping in. There was the photo my dad accidentally texted to me instead of my mom, a disconnect notice from their internet provider, then another, months later, of a shut-off warning from the electric company that he quickly followed with, "Whoops, wrong person, ignore." Where the old me would have logged in and paid, this version of me replied, "That looks stressful. Have you called them to work out a payment plan? Full stop. No link. Board no want me to handle it?" Noah sent me a text late one night. "Short $250 for a staging deposit. Big sale. We'll pay you back ASAP. Don't leave me hanging on this one." I stared at those words and heard my mother's voice in my head. "You'll never be on his level." Then I typed back, "I'm not lending money anymore. Hope you can figure it out." He read it and didn't reply. Did it hurt to picture my parents in a dark house? My dad scrubbing toilets at an extra job? My brother getting turned down for deals because he couldn't float costs? Of course. But I also thought about the vacations I'd skipped, the tires I'd driven on too long, the gnawing anxiety I'd lived with because their emergencies always came first. This time, the discomfort was evenly distributed. Over the next few months, their world shifted in small, unrevisable ways. My mom started selling things online. She'd slip comments into phone calls like, "I finally listed those crystal vases. Your dad said I'd never do it." Then pause, waiting for me to say, "Don't worry about money. I've got you." I didn't. My dad picked up a part-time maintenance job at an apartment complex on weekends. He complained about the drive, about his knees, about tenants leaving trash in the hall, but the subtext was clear. He was doing work they'd silently elected me to do. For free. For years. Noah stopped posting nightly bar shots and started posting from coffee shops and open houses. Through a cousin, I heard he'd lost a potential listing because he couldn't front some staging costs and the seller picked someone else. He bid it down and picked up shifts at a local bar between showings. Meanwhile, for the first time in my adult life, my money stuck around long enough for me to decide what to do with it. I joined a $30 a month gym. I went to yoga twice a week. I met friends for brunch and didn't immediately open my banking app in the bathroom to see if I needed to cancel something else to cover it. I took a long weekend trip to Asheville with a friend. We split a cheap cabin. I paid my half purely from my account with zero guilt that it should have gone to my parents. At work, I stopped clicking over to my personal bank dashboard in between client reports to see which fire had sprung up. With that mental bandwidth back, I studied for a certification I'd been putting off. I passed. My boss noticed. I got a small promotion. Their lives went on without me, constantly smoothing the edges. Mine finally started to expand. We're not a Hallmark movie now. There was no big tearful reunion around that binder. No group apology. No one has ever sat me down and said, "We're sorry, we took advantage." I doubt they ever will. What did happen is this. My mom got a part-time job. My dad took on work he'd preferred to avoid. My brother learned that the man of the house actually has to pay bills sometimes. And me? I learned that love and financial rescue are two different things. I still visit for dinner once in a while. I still help my dad with the occasional online form. I still answer the phone when my mom calls to talk about the dog or a recipe. But when the conversation turns to, "What's due?" I let the silence stretch. They're learning not to fill it by default with my wallet. I'm not out for revenge anymore. The binder moment took care of that. The real revenge, if you want to call it that, is the simple fact that my paychecks now go toward my rent, my goals, my rest, my future, and not automatically into a hole someone else dug. I love my family. That hasn't changed. What has changed is that I no longer let that love be converted into an invoice. If you've ever sat up at night doing math to save someone who turns around and says you never do anything, ask yourself this. What would your life look like if you stopped funding their version of the story and started investing in your own?